Kyle, what did you make of all that in the past 24 hours? We know these two individuals seem to be politically married. Did President Biden just say the quiet part out loud, and potentially he shouldn't have let that genie out of the bottle?
Well, look, I think, part of Biden's rationale for running, last time was that he wanted to, challenge Trump, that maybe he wouldn't have done it if Trump hadn't been president. And so, it's kind of in keeping with again, how he's dealt with this in the past. Now, that said, the president has this way of saying things and then having to, go back and correct them, basically, or to sort of change what he said because he made a gaffe. And some people would say that that's based on age. I think you could say that that's been sort of part of Biden's public persona for the decades that he's been around.
Well, let's put them together for a moment here, though, Kyle. I think Annmarie has a point, and it seems to be the moment we've reached here. Maybe it's just politics in this cycle where we're just saying it all out loud. Donald Trump, sure, dictator, at least on the first day. That's an American president speaking, former president, of course, presidential candidate. Joe Biden, might not even be running if it weren't for Donald Trump. Is this a good thing that we actually hear the truth for the next year?
Well, look, I mean, Trump says outrageous things and tries to do outrageous things all the time. And so, what he said yesterday, on one hand, it's alarming, but on the other hand, it's not shocking, coming from his mouth. And I will say, it is something worth noting that, the past month has been really terrible for Biden in terms of, polling and just the general kind of buzz. But part of it is that Trump is just not very visible. Biden's the incumbent president. Trump is, he's not appearing at the debate tonight. It's the sort of, at least from his perspective, kind of a sleepy primary season, at least for the time being. But if, in fact, Trump is nominated or, renominated, he is going to be more of a focus. And so it's going to be, to me, it's like the comparison is like 2016, when both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were pretty unpopular. It seemed like the person who was in the news more actually suffered for that. That dynamic might be the case with Biden now. And, you got to remember these races are they're choices between two candidates as opposed to referendums on the incumbent. It's a good thing for Biden that's the case, because if it was just a direct referendum on Biden, I think he'd have a hard time winning.
The Biden campaign expects to raise $15 million in this week alone, and they're sitting on $91 million. It is a huge war chest, Kyle. When are they going to start to deploy it?
They have been, running ads, and I think they are aware of some of their own weaknesses, particularly with some of the polls have shown with young people and non-white voters. Now, you can quibble as to how accurate the polls actually are on that. I think some of it's overstated, but I think some of it is real as well. I also think about, Trump in that, he's got these legal problems, so he's got his legal fees to pay. You do wonder if he's going to have the sort of resources to deploy that maybe he had in 2020. Of course, there's a long way to go. And, for all of Trump's problems, he does still have a lot of, there are a lot of people within the Republican Party, elected officials who are, endorsing Trump, who seem resigned to the fact of him being the nominee for a third straight time. But Biden is the incumbent president. You'd expect him to have, you'd really expect both these candidates to have more than enough resources. But I would maybe be more concerned about Trump than Biden in that regard.
Let's talk about what's about to happen tonight, Kyle. I'm not sure anybody's watching at this point, but we're down to 4. And it strikes me, with no other debates at least scheduled right now, and I realize that could change, there could be a real go-for-broke attitude for some of these candidates tonight. I'm thinking Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie among them. What are you going to be watching?
Well, we know that Ramaswamy really gets under the skin of the other candidates, particularly Nikki Haley. Mm-hmm. It's really, what the race has developed in such a way that while both of them are way behind Donald Trump basically everywhere, Nikki Haley is sort of caught up to Ron DeSantis, maybe not in national polling, but, Haley's doing better than DeSantis in New Hampshire and South Carolina, and Iowa is relatively close. Maybe DeSantis is doing a little bit better. And so the real, what I'll really be watching is how Haley and DeSantis interact. Christie and Ramaswamy, I think, aren't really true competitors at this point. And really, you could argue that none of the candidates on the stage are true competitors, given how big Trump's lead is. Huh. But if Trump were to falter, you'd expect either DeSantis or Haley to be the person who inherits that. And that's what they're sort of jockeying for, is sort of the right to possibly replace Trump if Trump suffers some sort of big collapse, which we've been talking about for months and months, but there's been no sign of it. And in fact, Trump has actually been getting stronger, you could argue, at least in the national surveys.
What do you make of the fact that some high number of Democratic voices, donors, are coming out and saying we should support Nikki Haley, even if they don't end up voting for her? Looking at the individual, the billionaire donor this week, Reid Hoffman, $250,000 he's putting behind Haley's super PAC. He's a Democrat.
Well, look, I mean, I think that there are Democrats who, they see what Trump said the other day, and that's how they feel about it. There's been a lot of sort of talk in, like, The Atlantic, for instance, kind of a widely read liberal publication, talking about just the dangers to the country of a second Trump term. And there are a lot of people who legitimately believe that, and there are reasons, they're pretty decent reasons for them to be worried about that. And if they feel like someone like Nikki Haley would be a more palatable Republican president for them, it's not, from my perspective, it's not crazy for them to figure out ways to support her to try to harm Trump. So that sort of makes sense to me. If you are really concerned, as some of these folks are, and if you've got the resources to deploy, I just don't know. Again, Haley is making some inroads, but again, she's so far behind. And I could even imagine Haley, doing pretty well in New Hampshire, for instance, but maybe it doesn't actually matter in the overall scheme of the campaign, given Trump's strengths elsewhere.